Good morning, and welcome to the Tech Lab Brief, your daily heartbeat of technology and reminder that reports of the machines taking over have been greatly exaggerated. We are your hosts,
I'm Ethan.
and I'm BK. Today is July 23rd, 2026, and this is your AM Brief. Let's jump right into it.
The Magnificent Seven Splinter as Wall Street punishes trillion-dollar AI capital expenditures. For 3 years, the Magnificent Seven functioned as a unified engine propping up the broader US stock market. However, the massive increases in AI capital expenditures resulted in Wall Street penalizing free cash flow compression.
Free cash flow compression. That was a lot of words, and we're starting off the day with these trillion-dollar companies. What a way to begin.
Yeah, once you start talking about billions and trillions, the numbers start losing some meaning.
Well,
The
there's some that do, and some are actually in control of those funds, and maybe there can be some that also have worked in a sector, have enough experience in a sector long enough to see that, yes, I mean, there are large salaries involved, there are large budgets, which go into large budgets, which also go into large investments.
Mhm.
Right? So let's spend some time today digging into these ridiculous number of zeros and trying to better understand what that means in terms of where the money's going.
Yeah. So Goldman Sachs made a projection that these hyperscalers, these AI infrastructure hyperscalers, such as Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, their CapEx commitments are going to reach around $1 trillion by 2027.
So let's break that down real quick. First of all, Goldman Sachs they're known as one of the top leading financial analysts. So they just understand money very well. They're saying that these companies are investing in this thing called hyperscalers. What's a hyperscaler?
I think a hyperscaler is just referring to the fact that certain companies are scaling up their AI infrastructure at a hyper rate. So that's what I think hyperscaler refers to.
Okay, that's one good take on it.
Because they're buying all these new GPUs, chips, and they have to build out their servers, their networking, and all these different commitments.
Okay, that's one way of looking at it. I mean, I believe that there's like the official definition of hyperscale, because this is a pretty deep tech term. It refers to a company that can provide the ability to hyperscale. I mean, you're spending hundreds of $billions, and yeah, that just points right to like hyperscaling. So they are also hyperscaling their hardware investments, but in general, for a company to be a hyperscaler means that, hey, you have like 1,000 computers and servers. I'm just a small little software company. I only need one computer right now, but there's a lot of users coming in, and let's say I blew up overnight and I need to support 1 million users now. So just like that, I can be like, all right, give me those 1,000 servers more. So that's obviously go from one server to 1,000 is a hyperscale. And the companies that can provide that capacity is what we refer to as a hyperscaler.
Good to know. Yeah. So another piece of evidence that the landscape is changing. The Alphabet company that runs Google is increasing their capital expenditure to, I think it went from roughly 185 billion to now roughly over 200 billion, which is a lot of money. So it shows an increasing amount of money being spent on building out AI infrastructure.
Infrastructure, right? I was about to ask, because we mentioned this word term before, capital expenditure. But yes, I'm leading us into the hint that we'll be talking about this later today during our knowledge segment.
Yeah.
So we'll put a bit of a tab on that, but as well, maybe the other hint is that every time we say capital expenditure, we're also kind of talking about AI infrastructure build out, right?
Yeah. And those two things are very closely related. Well, I guess it's an example of
where it runs. It's no longer just about personal gadgets. It's an infrastructure race powered by AI, custom silicon, and manufacturing bottlenecks. The hardware ecosystem is currently undergoing its most aggressive structural shift in decades, driven almost entirely by the massive demand for AI compute infrastructure, edge devices, and advanced silicon manufacturing. Continuation of what we just said, right? But now we're going to focus a little bit more on that hardware side.
Yeah. So when I think of the current state of hardware in the ecosystem, I think a lot of the data centers, AI data centers that the public seems to hate, but everyone's building them.
Right.
What are your thoughts on data centers? Are they good for society, bad for society?
As much as we can be critical about the impacts that the data centers are having in the local areas that they're being built out. The fact of the matter is, everything that we do on our phones, literally everything we do on our phones, if you ever, actually, maybe the you younger guys can resonate, but when you're young and your parents and you want your first electronic device, your iPad or what have you, and you get it, and there's no internet on it, there's no cellular service on it, you have no access to the internet on the device. The internet didn't really exist. It wasn't as big as it was back then, right? But now we know that the internet exists. We know that all this access to stuff is out there. What are the data centers for? Are they useful? And the answer is yes. But the question is, do we really need as many data centers as is being claimed, as is being invested in this larger market?
Yeah. If you don't mind me asking, can you explain why the data centers are important for, so maybe people who aren't as technologically literate?
Mm-hmm. So data centers run servers. Like, basically think of like all the computers that we have. The phone is also a computer too, but it's dedicated. Imagine it's just much bigger, and every piece of the hardware contributing to the server is for the purpose of being alive or being up and running all the time, right? Like, our phones can run out of batteries, or our laptops can run out of batteries. It can lose internet connection. In a data center, these things, not only is it non-negotiable that they're powered by, like through the plug, through a wire. There's like backups and backups to the backups, right? So it's not just the power and the internet, but also the data, the storage, right? Got to make sure all that stuff is running 100% of the time. There's actually a technical term for it called uptime. And well, that could get all technical, but that does tie us back together to the importance of the data centers, is that whenever we use our phones and connect to servers where all the data and all the apps live, is how we get our access to the data and the apps. Well, we're connected to some server that's almost certainly running on some data center where there are these what we call redundancies to make sure that the uptime is as close to 100% as possible.
So basically, these data centers, they help users experience a smooth experience on the internet. Like, they get a smoother, right, less crashes, less.
Yeah. Nothing more annoying than a spinning wheel with no guarantee that it's going to actually pop anything up, right?
Yeah.
So as we transition the conversation away from, it is data centers. Data centers are important, but we dig a little deeper into the hardware side about what these data centers are being built for, and knowing it's AI era. And yes, we need to understand a bit better about what they're for. And if we could take a wild guess, AI, right? And the AI run on data centers, but the specific piece of hardware, if we could point out one of these things in the images, GPUs. So that is like a big part of this story that's happening right now, is that we've seen NVIDIA just go astronomical, right? What's it called? Vertical.
Yeah, everyone's on NVIDIA chips.
Everyone's on NVIDIA chips. Well, that was the case like 2 years ago. Everyone was looking for NVIDIA chips, and all the CEOs were taking calls with Jensen Huang to say, "Hey, can you give us all the as many chips as you can?" But now what's happening?
They're starting to move into custom chip manufacturing because they don't want to solely rely on NVIDIA for all their AI infrastructure.
So that's definitely a transition that's happening, and who's going to win that race is really could be anybody. I would equate it to the early ages of the smartphone, and you guys might know of a company called BlackBerry that was an industry leader, but then they just couldn't keep up. And if we dial it way back to well, I don't want to dial it too far back because we do have to move on. But key point being that we've established where hardware is right now and kind of explaining the value, and then we're going to transition towards, I guess, naturally, not from hardware, but to what's being run. And on that note, take it away.
So AI software shifts from selling chatbots to automating entire business workflows. The software layer of the AI economy is moving beyond just chatbots and basic productivity tools. Companies are now building AI agents that can access corporate data, use internal software, make decisions, and complete multi-step tasks across customer service, coding, sales, finance, and IT.
Right. So, admittedly, this is just there's so much to cover when we talk about such large amounts of money and trying to understand like where it's being used and really focusing in on getting a good sense of where everything's heading regarding that. But what is for sure is that we're all running some app on our Hubbard devices, aren't we?
Yeah.
And what is it being used for? We're not quite there yet on a consumer level to be using this agentic AI stuff, are we?
Maybe. Right, we're getting there.
We're getting there. There's still this gap, and I would call it a knowledge gap, right? There's a fair amount of like base technical understanding that's required before I'm going to feel comfortable setting up an agentic AI system for myself for personal use. But just as, back in the early 2000s, late 90s, when I was growing up and nobody my age had a cell phone, right? But cell phones did exist, and who used those cell phones were the businessmen, right? So businesses use, right now, the area of our market that's really looking to invest, that's making these aggressive investments into making better use of AI are the businesses. But I mean, Ethan, as you read out like these different use cases of software, like, I don't know, what lands for you right now?
What lands is customer service and sales. Because I think those are two things that are, I feel like it's the next natural step, going from a chatbot that can replicate human interaction and using it towards customer service and sales, because those two things are purely human interaction. And although there is some aspect of humans would want to interact with a human when dealing with sales or customer service, I think from a business standpoint, it makes sense to sort of like reduce their costs on employees. If you don't have to pay workers that solely just sit at the desk and do customer service or make cold calls, then it's a major increase in their profit margins for businesses.
Right. So you're starting off with a very key area of this AI automation situation. Customer service is, as you say, a very natural, almost first step to seeing how AI can, yes, automate. And I want to use the word enhance, right? And the scary word that everyone gets afraid of is replace, which I don't think AI, not only it shouldn't be doing that, I really feel like it won't be doing that. But the fact of the matter is, if no one's going to show up and help to do the work, right? Then what else can the businesses do, right? And that brings us back to value creation. AI can do the thing that we ask it to do. It can very much stay in its lane and do like the basic tasks of executing A, B, C, and D. But now there's a greater challenge at hand to kind of be a little bit more creative, be a little bit more, the only way I'm going to say this, to care, right? So, because that's what customer service is. You got to care. And I'm sure we've had more than our fair share of interacting with employees on the other side of a business that I'm stepping into, whose walls that I'm stepping into and giving my time, energy, and effort. And it's just like the person on the other end is like, we're not quite getting the satisfaction that's expected out of what we call customer service. So it goes both ways.
Yeah.
We're moving towards the end of our news segment. I did want to get a little bit more specific about some of these software companies, where they are in terms of the whole automation situation, because at the end of the day, these large corporations, the larger the company gets, the more far off in a way they get to really connecting with, the everyday person and what our specific needs are. So they're right now just saying, hey, we're going to automate everything. It'll be great. And we're like, I'm sorry. So I don't know, any specific companies? I know there's a bit of a list there. So
OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Meta, and established enterprise software companies such as ServiceNow, they're expanding into agentic software and trying to automate enterprise workflow, move towards automation.
And I guess to cap it off, it's a point that there's still a lot of ground to cover for all of us, right? It's a massive gap between these large enterprise software companies and the promises that they're offering in their massive capital expenditures to what boils down to an operational expenditure, OpEx, for us to pay our bills, right? To help us continue the lives that we're living. And on that note of this CapEx and OpEx thing, gonna bring an end to our new segment. And now it's time for our knowledge segment. Knowledge segment today is brought to you by BK Tech Labs. BK Tech Labs, ushering in an era of collective intelligence, bringing an end to the gatekeeping of knowledge. Join us today. Become a member. Help shape the narrative. So, I wanted to do a finance piece today, but we didn't really talk numbers. Well, we talked a little bit of numbers.
Yeah.
It's more about the promises behind those numbers, right?
Yeah. Sort of moving past just like raw data and trying to look at the reasons why.
Mm-hmm. The why.
The why.
The how. All the deeper questions that lie beneath. If we go into a rechat, we have here a discussion of asking AI to explain the difference between CapEx and OpEx. Now, I guess just to warm us up a little bit, and I feel we should first kind of share what we think about OpEx and CapEx.
Well, capital is investments that businesses get, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
the larger amounts of money.
Yeah. So then capital expenditures, I think it means what they spend in order to increase their capital. Sort of like
right.
Building out infrastructure and that kind of stuff, but as opposed to operational expenditures, which is what they have to spend on their day-to-day operations.
Right, day to day, and that's kind of the differentiation I'm making in my head too. CapEx is longer term, OpEx is the day to day. I don't want to say short term because it is, but let's see. Difference between CapEx and OpEx. At its core, the difference comes down to what you're buying and how long it provides value. Capital expenditure is buying assets for the long term, operational, paying for day-to-day operations. So CapEx, acquire or upgrade physical or intangible assets. OpEx covers ongoing operational costs. Long-term, short-term, user larger monies, larger amounts of sum are involved. Operational and recurring. Example. You buy $100,000 worth of physical service to live in your own data center. You own the hardware and its value depreciates on your tenant books for 3 to 5 years. OpEx, you spin up cloud servers on AWS, Azure, or Google, and you pay monthly bill only what you consume, deducting that expense immediately as an operating cost. So basically, an OpEx is a subscription. You pay a subscription fee for anything, and you're pretty much spending an operational expense.
Yeah.
CapEx is, in a way, we could almost look at CapEx and OpEx as a software versus hardware investments.
Kind of, yeah. And one is a subscription, it's like software subscriptions, but then one is I guess like a physical, they call it a lump sum investment, where you just put down a bunch of money to buy something, and then you just own the thing, which is more how hardware operates.
Well, hardware is almost, in a sense, I guess the word like permanent. Once you buy the physical thing, you have it. But then it's interesting, I think about like upkeep, maintenance costs. Let's just try to go on here. This is cash flow, flexibility, tax and financial reporting. All right. The follow-up prompt. Put this in the context of the whole AI situation. AI boom has completely rewritten the book on CapEx versus OpEx. Here's how the distinction plays out in the modern AI ecosystem.
So these companies are just pouring billions of dollars, like you said, into CapEx, buying all these GPUs, graphics cards. Mainly from NVIDIA.
Well, it was.
Yeah.
It still is.
Yeah. And then the risk is that high CapEx means that there's no free cash flow. So, or not none. There's free cash flow is compressed, and there's like less wiggle room on what like they can spend their cash on. So
yeah, so if we spend our capital on one thing, then it might force us to rebalance our budget and these things.
And since it's CapEx and not OpEx, they just poured out all this money and they can't really just get it back. If it was OpEx, then they can just cut their operational costs. But then since it's CapEx, they already spent all that money. They can't really reduce the cost of it at all.
Well, I mean, depending on how it's all delivered and how like they choose to budget that CapEx over time. You know, this is obviously a deep topic that we've just kind of begun entering. I want us to continue to have a cadence for like basically bridging this gap. We've had our brief today and covered some really interesting ground on interesting topics related to this whole tech AI sector and understanding the financial element of it. First, confronting these ridiculous numbers, but then digging in and understanding what it means, and then saying what does that mean for us? Where does that put us, and how can we place ourselves to be in a good position to make sure that we can confidently deliver a certain value to match what the budgets are for these capital expenditures, that we are worthy of the operational expense as well. And I guess on that note, it brings an end to our knowledge segment. And looking at the clock, we got just enough time for Zen, so we'll pass on the arcade segment. Again, my apologies. I'm working on this whole trying to stay on point and focused on what we want to deliver for the day. There's something to say about trying to get the right cadence for prep time, but none of that's really necessary to say right now. Thank you for watching. If you're still here, please let us know what you think. Join us for the next one later today at 5. More interesting tech discussions. And now it'll be your minute of Zen. All right. Let's lock in. Have a great day, and we'll see you at 5. Bye. I know.